if say you're accumulating this wealth, but you're still living the same lifestyle, what's the actual point?
I couldn't tell you.
Real Talk, all about business, marketing, family, and a few taboo subjects. And we have about £250 million worth of knowledge sat right here. And we're going to talk about their kind of experiences in business, also how that links in with family. And then we're going to also talk about some kind of gems that they've got if they were going to start again, maybe if they only had £1,000, and what would that look like? So let's get into it now. So we'll start off, we'll go from this side and go around. You guys can introduce yourselves, just say your name, just tell us a little bit about you.
My name is Nick Sahota. I am a landlord and developer, mainly. Fourth generation of doing that within the same business. Okay. So yeah, just that's what I do.
And is that primarily like in Southampton or further afield?
Only in Southampton.
Only?
Really. Yeah, we've got one property in Portsmouth, but otherwise everything's in Southampton.
Predominantly Southampton, yeah. Good stuff. Okay. And
I'm Patrick Massey, and my background is mainly financial services and then development into property as a landlord, some multi-let and some individual let property and some commercial. And that's in both Southampton, Winchester and Portsmouth.
Okay, good stuff. And yourself?
So I'm Peter Harding, and I'm a property developer, investor, and cover a bit more of the country, based from Inverness, Elgin in the north, down as far as Penzance, Land's End.
I was going to say John O'Groats then.
Yes, no. Inverness is not too far from there. No, we're down to Penzance, and in actual fact, we just bought something recently in St Just, which is literally down by Land's End.
Okay.
So we cover a lot of the country, but it's commercial and residential.
Yeah.
It's a slightly different business, and that's come by virtue of the fact, what I didn't say at the beginning, is that I'm a plumber. So I learned as a plumber and ended up covering a lot of the country through previous businesses.
Okay, cool. So really then, you guys really overlap a lot then. So we've got more like Nick residential,
mostly
market,
residential, yeah.
And more for the kind of high rise.
Bit of everything. Quite a few blocks of residential flats. That's kind of what we focus on, is flats, rather than houses or anything else. We mostly, I'd say probably 80% of our portfolio is flats.
Okay. And Patrick, what about yourself?
What in terms of how the structure of the property is?
Yeah, just like portfolio. Is it more houses or some blocks or?
It was originally a lot of individual flats, so 1 and 2 bedroom flats predominantly in the sort of Walsash area. But in recent times, that I don't really believe that there's the yields in those type of properties, and gone away from that and sold a fair few of those back. And I think the majority of them have probably gone back to the residential, back to owner occupiers rather than being actually let.
Okay.
And my area that I like mostly now for property is multi-let. So, taking a property which and developing that into multi-bedroomed house for professionals or students.
Okay. What HMO with that?
Yeah, to a high, really high standard. So that when whoever's looking, they just want it. If they looked at others, they have yours. So hotel room standard.
Okay, so high end.
So co-living type stuff you're doing?
HMO, so house and multiple occupancy.
Yeah. But top end co-living.
Yeah. And then that combined with my my financial services business, where I'm the principal of a regulated company there.
So that's so quite interesting just between the two of you, really. So Patrick's exiting the flats market.
Yeah.
Nick's heavily involved, 80% in that market as well.
Yeah, we are more of a lower end of the market probably than flats and Walsash. We mostly focus on more affordable, low sort of cost housing flats. than we do on the higher. The higher.
So it just shows that there's kind of like there's money in both sides depending on where you want to put your energy.
Also, we don't own leasehold flats, so we only freehold. So if we've got flats, we own all of them in the block.
Yeah. So I guess that
no ground rents, no management fees, no other charges that if you just buy one flat at a time, normally you'd have to pay. So that would reduce yield generally.
So would they have their individual leases anyway, but you own the freehold?
No, just buy freehold buildings, convert them into flats, build out flats, buy land and build out a block of flats.
And then you're not selling them on, so you just rent them from there.
Rent them from there. Yeah.
So you haven't got anyone else dictating costs like maintenance costs, etc.
No.
And then I guess Pete, you've got like the everything pot, haven't you? Really? So it's
it is. It's a wide variation of stuff. We've got a lot of warehouses and retail part. We've got stuff like the Range in Penzance.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of tool station, Howdens, CEF, trade wholesalers. Yeah. But for me, what it always is it's not a case of focusing on a flat, a house. It's a case of focusing on if you're buying a brownfield site and it depends on the property, and then we look at that property and it tends to be a mixed use scheme. It's quite often flats and could be a bit of commercial on the ground floor. And it really is always a case of what's the backdrop? What can we go to make it work?
Yeah.
Rather than having a particular focus on flats or houses, or it's what. How can we make that building sweat?
We're much the same, but we generally find ourselves, because we try to keep everything close. My granddad always said, just buy in Southampton, don't go outside of that. Retain everything. So we've always just stuck to what my granddad's kind of mission statement.
That's really interesting, because actually I completely would have disagreed with that once upon a time.
Yeah.
And that's why I ended up chasing all around the country and doing it. And I'm still, if I'm honest with you, I'm still doing that.
Yeah.
But as with somebody with family working within the business, they're not going to want to travel the far end of the country to be looking after stuff. Yeah, that's driven me all my life. That's the sort of thing that drives me. I love it.
Just to get out and about.
So you do the travelling, do you enjoy
I travel it. I do. It's been in my nature.
And you enjoy the spreading out and the scale of it.
Yeah, well, what happened was, because we're going back in my plumbing days, previous business days, I got to know a lot of the country, so I felt confident that I was managing businesses with people all over the country in that particular day. So I then carried on, keep going around the country doing what I'd done, because I knew it.
Yeah, and you
parts of the country maybe I don't know so well, but I knew the country well. But it then gets to, as your granddad is now saying to you, and I'm sat there thinking, I'm not going to say how old I am now, but I got to start to think to myself in a bit.
22.
But you then think, well, actually, they're not going to do that, and it is about how you can manage it. Yeah. So you're managing stuff locally, and there's no doubt. It's easier to manage that.
It's easier to manage,
So if I had a pile of residential stuff up in Scotland, it would be nothing but a nightmare. With commercial, you can actually run it, look after it. It's easier.
Pete, just on that actually. So you come from a plumbing background. Is that something within the family, or is that just something like from school you picked up as a trade, going into college, or?
No, I was. I consider myself very fortunate. So I was a St Dennis schoolboy, local schoolboy. Mum and Dad had a corner shop in St Dennis, and Dad had a little plumbing business.
Okay, yeah,
and one of the things where I consider really fortunate is that Dad trained me to be a plumber when I was 16. I had to ask for the job, but he trained me to be a plumber. And from there on, I was lucky to be given an opportunity to follow him and follow in his footsteps, as with plumbing. And I think once you're given that chance, it's what you do with that chance and where you take it to. So of course, I then started. We as a family decided to open up some plumbing shops. And then I wasn't so involved in the business at that stage, but then I was asked by the family to come in and get involved, and we grew that to 70 shops around the country, which your family would have been the customer of going all those years ago. And then we sold that, and then take the money from that, reinvest, and start again in
property and
other stuff. But that's where it comes from, the comfort of the country.
Yeah.
But now I know, I completely understand what your grandfather was saying.
Yeah,
the logic in stay where you can touch it, go and
you can get to it quickly. You can manage everything easier, maintenance wise.
And I think we go into that a bit deeper because I've got a little bit of a theory as to why with that as well, which I'll come back to. And but what about your kind of early days, Patrick, as far as like what got you into the finance and then into property? Was it again school, college, or?
No, I didn't have a natural progression into finance. My original background was merchant navy officer, so I did a marine engineering cadetship. Which I enjoyed to some extent. But I just remember being at sea and thinking that most of the other officers and engineers and etc. that were around me that were, say I was sort of 21 years old and they were sort of 30, all they wanted to do was be not at sea. I thought that by the time I get to that age, I'll probably feel the same. So I probably need to do something sooner rather than later. Even though now you look back and think, oh, it would have been good to have two lives. Maybe that would have been good fun for a while. But you can't do it all.
And then how did it fall into then the finance side?
So I had a family member that had left the services, and so was a bit older than me and gone to work with an insurance company in Southampton, and I saw them doing particularly well, and they encouraged me to try. And it was in the old days of big direct sales forces. You got your leads from the phone book, and you filled up your diary, and you went out. Literally, and you went out and saw people. And
not over Zoom.
And I just got I literally got the bit between my teeth and just worked really, really hard at it. Put the hours in. And then just started to pick up a few sort of smaller flats and had them rented out. And
so that's a real transition, because really from like Nick, your journey, it's already in the family. So you're almost like just kind of carrying that process on, maybe developing it a little bit differently. And then Pete, yourself really coming in, your dad's already in that business, brings you in, you ask for a job, you get a job, and then you're continuing that. Whereas then Patrick, you literally was stranded out in sea one time and just thought, no, I want to do something different. And
there really wasn't a natural progression there.
Which is really interesting. And going back, Nick, to the kind of like when Pete was saying about staying in Southampton, you're saying like building that up. One thing, we'll talk about where you grew up actually, and then I'll come through with my theory with that.
Yeah. Okay, so basically my granddad's still around, still tries to be active. Not so... Still active. He gets around, still gets onto the building sites, he still wanders around, he'll still be climbing up scaffolding. He's 86 years old now. And he's still going. Not probably doing much, mostly just getting in the way and causing more issues than he solves. But it's good for his health, I think, more than anything. And he loves to see the progression of where we are now, because he came to this country with absolutely nothing. In the 1950s, his father was already here, and they literally from nothing built up a few properties, a few houses, and during that time they were still building up properties. In the 70s, 80s, they were still living in one room of a house while renting out all the other rooms in the house. That they owned the house, they rented out the other rooms, and then buy another house, rent out all the rooms, and that kind of stuff. And by the time I was born, we were in one house, the whole house, rather than living with tenants like my parents, mum and dad did.
Quick question on that, actually, because where did that ethos come from? Because I noticed that quite a lot of South Asians that came over to the UK in that time period did the same thing. Like my background's Jamaican, Caribbean. We didn't do that. Like to a certain extent anyway.
And they came to the same sort of time to the country.
Exactly. And it was, I remember my grandparents saying like, those guys, that's what they're doing. Whereas like And I always remember thinking to myself, well, why didn't you do that then? But culturally, it was a case of Jamaicans love their space.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, that's just my room kind of thing. So is it a cultural thing?
I think there's a culture of sacrifice.
Yeah.
The culture of being able to borrow from now for later.
Okay.
So they're happy to sacrifice today for tomorrow. It's still bred into my culture. Now,
I think that's completely right in terms of a community. What used to happen, because they sacrificed, and what they were doing is they were prepared to live with people in all of these other rooms because that's then they can fund it. So they're funding it, doing it, rolling off some more money, then they can buy the next one, and then the next one, and they were reinvesting back in money.
Before they lived in their own house, they had 10 other houses.
But is that something though? Is it say for instance? Is it a regional thing, like within India? Like, say, for instance, the region that your family came from, or was it just a general?
Possibly. It's hard to say exactly why, but my theory on it is that in India, everyone worked off the land, so you have to own something to be able to earn off it, to eat off it, right? Okay. So you got to grow your own. They're basically, I come from farming. My cultural heritage is farming. Sure. Right? Land ownership is kind of all we've done for generations and generations in my ancestry. That's all we've ever done is with farmers. To farm, you have to have land to farm, and I suppose this was the manifestation of that.
And I guess as well, from a farming point of view, you don't instantly get the rewards. You put a crop in, you have to wait. It's seasonal, patience, and stuff.
And
like
the
that.
more land you have, the better it is. I think that's kind of always where that's my kind of theory on it. I suppose. But I see it a lot in my family, my extended family, and a lot of people in my heritage community. I suppose.
Because the reason why I say, because like I said, like. Caribbeans came in at the same time, South Asians come in at the same time. But even, say, for instance, Chinese, never saw them do that same type of thing. Now,
they do it a lot quieter.
Yeah, but they've been successful financially, but not the same kind of model, even though they've got a very strict culture and it's very much like, for the next generation and next generation.
They also buy a lot of property as well.
Yeah. But that's an interesting one. And going back to then, so where you grew up, so tell us a little bit about the area, the part of Southampton, what it was like.
The first house my great-grandfather bought was on Derby Road, bought in 1948. We're still in that house now. It's a house I used to spend all our time in. My great-grandmother, my grandfather, my parents, my dad, my aunties, my uncles, everybody were all in that house all at the same time. It was actually really nice community time. We were kids then. I don't remember huge amounts of it, but it was just happy times. But most of the time, I don't remember seeing much of my parents when I was a youngster. I was raised mostly by my great grandmother because even my grandparents at that time were always at work. My parents were always at work. Everybody had two jobs. Everyone, my mum, my grandma, my dad, my uncles, everybody had loads of jobs, working days and nights, and all the kids were kind of rounded up with the oldest person just to look after everybody's kids.
Basically, the slowest person in the house was looking after the kids.
It was just how it was, I think. And then later, when my grandmother retired, she actually used to kind of have almost a creche at home of all family members' kids.
Sounds efficient, doesn't it?
So everybody could go to work. Everybody went out to work, so everybody could leave their kids somewhere that wasn't expensive nurseries or something like that, and it was all kind of kept in house, I suppose. And we were raised like with a lot of family together.
Yeah, so it's all
for as cheap as possible. I think was always however they could sacrifice to save a penny, they would. And just so they can reinvest it, not to live any differently. They lived the same as from the point they got here. And my great grandfather got here in 1945, post-war. To really, when I was secondary school, we kind of lived exactly the same way. So that's
what would
50 plus years of sacrifice without a lot of them seeing the reward of that. And my grandfather still now doesn't enjoy it as he should.
That's what I was going to say. So here's my question. Everything that you say is admirable and it's amazing, and it's like it's probably the most efficient way that you could start a business, family business. Everyone's involved, from childcare, great grandma doing childcare, whoever can be on the phones, whoever can be out, 2 jobs, everything like that. But if say you're accumulating this wealth, but you're still living the same lifestyle, what's the actual point?
I couldn't tell you because I haven't had to sacrifice like that to that level. Yeah. As a kid, it was always normal. Yeah. Didn't know any different. My cousins were all the same. Everybody's the same. Nobody really was, trying to have more. I think my granddad always said where he came from, they had to work this hard just to survive. Okay. Just to live.
So it's almost like a natural instinct.
So you work this hard and you can make a fortune. Yeah. It seems a no-brainer to him. That's
But the expectation will come down through their family from that grandfather that's still tottering around at 87. Yeah. And there will be expectation on them to carry on doing it. Yeah. There will be expectation to carry on investing. Will be some expectation to carry on working within it to create more and that again.
Yeah. We still live now together.
Yeah.
So
you'll have a self-expectation too, because you've got to live up to that.
Yeah, 100%. My children live with my grandfather still now, so we're 4 generations in the same house still now. Obviously, albeit a much larger house and a lot more space, and we're not living on top of each other like perhaps we were when I was younger. But when I was younger, I enjoyed it. I loved it. I loved having all my cousins and my friends, like my family friends and what have you, all around all the time. It was brilliant. But there's some things that you don't really realise until you get older. Like I always called my mum auntie because I didn't realise it was my mum. Yeah. Because I never saw her that much. Yeah. Because all my cousins were always around, they called her auntie, so I just copied and called her auntie as well because I didn't realise it was, I suppose at a young age you don't really know those things.
And do you know it's funny because I was actually, do you remember I said at the beginning, we were going to do the intros, go into business and stuff like that, then go into family, and then go into like, if you had £1,000 starting again, what would you do? Yeah. But it's interesting actually that the family and business are so entwined from day one. Yeah. So it's like, Pete, when you were talking, you were saying your dad, and then the plumbing business. So it's like straight away, we're talking family and business entwined. And then Patrick, the same again. Merchant Navy, family member said, get into finance or making money, entwined straight away. And then like what you're saying, granddad, dad, grandparents. So that it's actually, it's not separated, is it? So when you think about it, at its core, actually that underlying success seems to come from having a strong family nucleus, even if it's dysfunctional.
It does. It does. But what I would also say to you is that on a personal basis, I do not like the word family business because that gives the impression to everybody and those within the family that they've got a right to just run that business, have the benefit of that business.
Which isn't the case. You still got to have people that want to get on in there, haven't you?
There's an image of entitlement within it, but it doesn't really exist.
You must perform. Just because one of my children, it's not a case of, this automatic opportunity. What you can do, what you want to be able to do is give your children a chance, and that's what they do with it. Yeah. But it doesn't mean that
they've still got their KPIs and stuff.
They have to run that like a business. And I guess they have to be hungry to do it as well.
I guess it's that thing, isn't it, whereby from the outside looking in, people think it's all rosy if it's a family setup, because that's the image that you have of a family anyway, isn't it? Everyone, it's a bit like with, back in the day, the phone rings and mum picks up the phone. It's like the telephone. You don't sound like that, but on the phone you do. And it's the same with how you paint the image of how your family is to the outside world, whereby you say that. But then I guess from being inside the family, especially if you're not the head of the family, it must be a lot of pressure in different ways. Because did you feel that? Do you feel it?
I've never known anything different. So we never really had a separation of work and home. Yeah. home was our work, our office, everything was all at home. Our home phone was our office phone. So as kids, we were expected to pick up the phone and to the home, and know what to say to tenants who would be calling up, to whoever it might be. And we didn't know any different. That's all we knew. And it was kind of home was work. And it always was. And it's never not been. And I think that is from my granddad. And he's always just work. He's still the same. He's never going to change. But we have to, like Peter said, we have to perform. Because he just doesn't tolerate non-performance of anything.
So that bar's there.
Well, he leads by example. He's going to set on site.
He leads by example. Yeah.
No, is that? Would you say that's key as well? Because some people they lead from the back, don't they?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's key,
I guess it's all you know, isn't it?
I think all I know, and my experience of it is that it's worked for me, and I hope that's why, like I said, my children live in the same house as my grandparents, because I want them to have that same education that I grew up with. Because it's worked for me. And it's worked for my siblings, my dad. I want that same education to be passed down.
That's the same principles. I get that. So let's go into then first kind of business deal where it's like it was your only deal. So Patrick, do you remember? So you've made that transition now from the Navy. You've gone into finance. And then do you remember your first kind of property purchase?
I'd already bought my first property, which I still own. A bit like Nick's story about their first property, which was a 2-bedroom flat in Walsash for sort of £50,000, and still got that. And I bought that when I was in the Merchant Navy.
What made you decide to buy them while you was in the Navy? What gave you that instinct to do that?
Well, I particularly remember the huge boom in property values in the late 80s and thinking that I was a bit young for that and sort of just missed out on it and didn't want to miss out on the next one. So I guess there was some greed there. But also I lived there. So in the Merchant Navy, have some.
So it made sense as well.
You have some quite long sort of time off, so it makes sense to have that. And then I started in the financial services world, and when I started to earn quite good money within a relatively short period of time, a year, etc. I then bought a Victorian semi-detached house just round the corner from that flat, and moved into there on my own with my Springer Spaniel, and that felt like a palace because it was huge. Three bedrooms actually, and the loft conversion, and rented the 2-bedroom flat. So that was probably the first kind of move in that direction.
And then did it just how did it go? So from that kind of first flat, then getting a second property. Then when did it kind of really accelerate, whereby it was like, right, now I'm getting, there's 7 more properties? Was it a slow transition, or was it quite a quick transition?
I was probably reached a point where I was, always about to buy something or buying something, always had something on the go, as it were. So I wasn't wasting the money that I earned. So I was, as soon as I had a deposit, I would go again.
And would that be
those same type of properties? Those.
So you'd kind of stick to that you had a method that you'd stick to.
Yeah, and a length that you knew, and it worked. And
was it a case of all the money that you made? So let's say, for instance, you rented out 2 properties, and then the profit from that, you're just saving it so you can get a deposit for the next, or.
No, I would always generally have the mortgages on a repayment, so there wouldn't be. I'd never ever. I used to see landlords all the time that suddenly, they had 10 properties or something, and then they gave up their job, and suddenly they said they were a landlord and they were living out of it, some kind of high life. And it just doesn't work. I just don't believe that works to do that. I never, and probably still to this day, don't live out of those rents. I always put them back in. So whether it was a repayment mortgage or letting that business bank account build up to an extent. So yes, there was another deposit, but that would have been too slow. So you needed to have the other decent earnings as well alongside, so a decent job alongside it, and just working at it between the two.
Okay.
But it's kind of similar to Nick's story in a different way. And still now don't live the life that for some people, right from the day one, they would have had the biggest car on tick and been swanning around with their arm out the window on the landlord, you know, and I didn't do that. Yeah. Just kept going in the background.
Why didn't you do that? What is it? Is it because in your makeup?
Probably scared that, you know, I came probably like, by the sounds of all of us, a pretty standard or minimal kind of background, from a council house background, where you look around, people had virtually nothing. Yeah, everyone was just earning and spending what they had each week, and I'd always thought that I didn't want to be like that. I'd like to feel that at some point you could have something to fall back on. Yeah. But then that never really, as my old nan used to say, leopard never changes its spots. You don't really change. You don't suddenly become this person that swans around and doesn't want to work. You just keep doing it. So then a bit like you said, what's the point in the end? So,
that's what I was going to say, because I always think there's two different types of people when it comes to wealth or money. And I think you get ones whereby when they get the money, they end up being them real selves. So when they didn't have the money, they had these ambitions of being someone. And then when they did get that money, they're actually themselves. So whether they're just more they're always selfish, but now they've got money, they show they're being selfish because they don't need anybody else to make money. Or you have the other way round, where it's a case of, do you know what, they have an ethic or a way which just lends itself to making money, but they as a person and their lifestyle doesn't really change that much because it's not necessarily about the money. It's just a case of that's how your brain works. There's an opportunity, boom, 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 but I've just got cash. But it doesn't make a difference.
Something really resonated with what Nick said just now, which was giving up today for tomorrow. And I can remember being sat in my car in the early days of being in financial services, and I think coming in at like 10 o'clock at night and literally falling asleep in the drive. And then being away back to the office again for 8 o'clock the next morning. But there wasn't a lot of social life. And I can remember just thinking, like, this, I used to look at it in sort of 12-month segments, and I think, right, this next 12 months, I'm just going to work as literally as hard as I can. And I'm going to, if most other things have got to fall to the wayside, you know, going out for a meal or going to a pub or meeting a load of friends or whatever. And then they'll all still be there, maybe, at the end of that 12 months, and then reassess it at that point.
The day when you start taking loads of cash out and living that high life, then you're not going to be reinvesting back in to keep building what you've been trying to build. And what happens is you become you're fortunate, you become a wealthy man, and you've got your asset is what your wealth. As soon as you actually start spending all of that, it's gone, and you don't create anymore. So you were saying earlier about, you know, why, what you do with it, or how do you show it, or what you enjoy with it. I think most people who are building are still building and building and building, have to keep putting back in. The reason why you could do it, you were getting the rent coming in and you were mortgaging up against the next one and the next one, and you can't do that unless you've got some equity to do it on the next one.
So that you're leading into yourself now, Pete, because I was going to say to you, what was your first property purchase, and was it because you were saying that
if I listened to the questions earlier, I thought there's nothing. If I look back and think, what was the first property purchase? Does it really resonate with me and make me think, wow, that was really exciting?
Or the first key moment then, first kind of key, because there must have been that moment whereby, you know, it's almost like when you have your first child, and it's that, you know, something different happens. It's a, you know, for me.
I think the answer to that will be is you're talking about the family business situation, and parents, and I think it certainly wasn't for me buying my first property. I think you grow up really wanting to fly and to do well. And I can remember going out and doing a plumbing and heating quote to put a head central heating system in for something. My younger brother was in hospital, mother and father were off with them, so they were devoting a lot of time to him. And so therefore I believed that my father was underselling us in the plumbing and heating business. So I went out, and I can remember driving down the road in a mini metro and going in and putting the prices up for the heating systems that we were putting in. And I secured it that night, and I can remember stopping. I don't even smoke. I stopped in a mini metro, bought myself a cigar, and drive down the road thinking, I've cracked it. So that was a moment I thought, you can really do this. I can remember my dad later saying, no, you can't keep doing it. I said, I've done it. That's what we're doing. So I think that was probably a moment. But I would say to you, if you're buying property now, still to this day, it's the right moment. It's every single property purchase that you buy, particularly as you're buying some of the slightly bigger ones, and then they're exciting. This day there's opportunities about, and you can buy things. You can look to see how I can create it. And sometimes people say, "What are you doing with it? What are you doing about it?" I think, I've got about 3 different ideas, because if that one won't work, that one will, or that one will. And that's, to me,
So do you like that kind of, like you said there, your kind of big moment is whereby you could see, hold on a second, we're undervaluing this asset.
When you go along to look at something, you know full well what I would call a no-brainer. What you're going to do with it, as I say, either that or that. You can do something with it, and it is exciting, because you can go different ways, and that's how you progress. And it's how much value you can create of it to create some more funding room to be able to then get on and do more and more and more.
So how then did it transition from the plumbing empire that was what was nationwide, and that made you the type of person that, look, I'll buy assets up and down the country because you're used to traveling around. How did it go from plumbing? Why did you transition? Why not become like the next B&Q? Why did you then go into property? What was that swing moment?
I think where I'd had so many hundreds of people working for me, and I was never, I was always on the road, silly hours all over the country, living in hotel rooms. I've done that, and also within the business, Travis Perkins bought a business, and they handcuffed me for 3 years, so I couldn't compete.
Oh, okay.
So I was handcuffed, and I was on their payroll, but to stop doing anything. And I knew property. I'm a plumber. I was buying trade outlets and putting your own company in there. So naturally, you want to stay with something that you know. But property is so many youngsters now, and you're asking the question in a moment of us, well, if you were to have another £1,000 in your pocket, what would you do? And there's so many youngsters who quite rightly come and say to you, what do you think? What would you do? Constantly. And as if there is no quick fix. For anything, your family have been in it for years, and it's reinvest. So unless I'm not clever enough to be a techie and find something that I could invest £5,000 into, and suddenly got the best idea that's out there, I think you've got to be lucky. And to be a bit of a techie, but if you're in this game, if you're in the straightforward nuts and bolts of property, then it's the long game. Unless you get the occasional lucky wins on it, but
It's
would you all agree with that, then? Would you?
There's always, I think everyone has the breaks. Everyone gets the odd break. There's always an opportunity for everyone. Not everyone seizes them. A lot of people differ on them. A lot of people aren't in the position to be able to accept them because they haven't done the work prior. You have to be in a position to take these opportunities.
And would you say on that basis, because with all of your stories as well, that you weren't starting from zero. So it's like you said there, having those opportunities. So imagine, let's just say, for instance, your granddad didn't do that with being in one room, renting out the rooms and buying properties, etc., etc. but then he still had the same amount of children, but maybe you're still down on Derby Road, inner city Southampton, and then you're now then not going to a private school, but going to a local comprehensive school. How would you think that life would be different just on those decision makings, like the domino effect of those decisions that happened before you? And then if you were maybe starting out, what would your instinct tell you?
I'm not sure because I haven't lived it.
Yeah.
But life compounds. Everything compounds in life. So those small decisions that my grandfather made and stuck by for many years has compounded into what he created. The same again with my father, and the same again with me. I've been working for now over 15, 17 years, something like that, in the same business. Everything compounds. It constantly compounds, negative or positive. So if you make bad choices constantly, that will compound into a worse situation. If you make good choices constantly, it compounds. Only tiny little things that might be. I'm going to struggle to give an example, so I won't.
Is it more delaying things that you know you've got to do?
You have to.
You have
to.
Because that's one key thing that I know.
For me, I've just seen a lot of people also fail. As well. I grew up with my family always doing a lot of low-cost housing, a lot of benefits, kind of tenants, that kind of stuff. So I saw a lot of what doesn't work through the eyes of those people. So you're aware enough to kind of be... So when I was a kid, my granddad used to run bedsits in Northam. We still got them. I still run them today. They're slightly improved now, but they're not as... Those days, there was a lot of drug addicts, that kind of stuff. And as a kid, I remember speaking to them a lot. I remember seeing them a lot. My dad explaining to me about them and a lot. And most of them was bad decisions that's got them there. Because although we didn't live a...
trauma.
We didn't live a lavish lifestyle, but we definitely didn't live like that. And they lived on the same roads, that we lived nearby them, but...
There is no doubt in my mind that if you're fortunate enough to have parents, not wealthy parents, but parents that open the doors and give you the right example in life and the right ethics in life, is a massive advantage. And so many of those people, a lot of them go away that have been given a chance, but the biggest majority, if your parents are actually committed and setting the right example, work ethics, investment ethics, and bring you up understanding that type of respect we talked about in the Asian community a little bit earlier, that is a massive advantage in life.
And I'm gonna switch it on you now, on all of you, because you've all talked about your accomplishments that have been fantastic, the kind of life journey, the start, the business, etc., etc. And they always say behind a successful man there's a strong woman. So would you identify with that? Would you say, like, in your life, because I know you mentioned like your grandma and stuff like that. What would you say that strong woman behind you, and what did that give you? How did that develop your character? How did that help you, even if it was, if it wasn't?
My great grandma was the original driving force. I remember as a kid, she used to teach me all sorts, how to count, mathematics, and all these kind of things. And she knew a lot of life philosophy I learned as a young kid from her. And she's the person who I suppose pushed my grandfather to where he is, and my father as well to where to his. She was the matriarch of our family, I suppose. And I do resonate with the fact that she was the strong woman behind it. And then again, my mother is as well, and my grandmother as well. And my mother is still to this day. I just had a meeting with her in my office a couple of hours ago, telling me what to do, what needed to do, that kind of stuff. So it's still, she still tells us all what to do.
I know they're not here to speak for themselves, but what do you think drove them or drives them?
I don't know, because my mum isn't that focused on growth or anything like that. She just, whatever we want to do, she'll just back it. sometimes she tells us to stop. She's always telling me, don't buy anymore, stop buying now. Had enough, don't want to, don't want to do it anymore. Stop buying, and then I buy another one, or, and
it should be all right then, let's do it kind of thing.
Yeah, not even that. She just carries on.
Is it almost like that? Like, because I think women by their very nature are homemakers, aren't they?
Yeah.
And I guess they, I think men in general, I'm generalising, but we kind of just live with the basics.
Yeah.
But it's like a man can have a house, but a woman makes it a home, makes it cozy and comfortable. Is it that? Is it just having...
I don't know. I feel like she holds the reins and knows where to hold us so we don't
go too far.
Making stupid mistakes all the time. And she
that's a good
knows
insight.
exactly where to draw that line. Don't go too far, because don't overstretch on that. Don't push too hard on that, because there's risk in all these things that we do.
Of course.
It's not always a guaranteed win. A lot of these things are higher risk. And for me, I'm betting 77 years worth of my family's hard work on the back of everything I do. So it's not even just the weight of what I've achieved, it's the weight of everything my whole family's achieved on every deal I make, especially larger purchases or larger deals that I do. I'm betting everything they've ever done, so I'm risking a lot. So I do sometimes get carried away, too excited about things.
So you need that yin and yang,
and I need somebody sometimes to stop me, and my mum is that person for me.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And what about you, Patrick? What would you say? Is there a woman, whether it be mama or an auntie or something that you can say that you've drawn inspiration from when you kind of reflect back? Or
both of my parents were working class and hardworking and really factory workers, really. My dad doing an apprenticeship in sheet metal work, and my mum working in... my mum was working in Fareham, Plessis, when they used to actually, they had all the people there on the line doing the transistors.
Oh, okay.
I think she had 2 jobs.
Yeah.
She always worked really, really hard. And then she was a nurse as well, became a nurse after that. And she worked doing night duties as a nurse well into her 70s. So it was always an ethos of everyone just goes to work. That's what you do. There was no like... You don't do that. And if you ask me the question like you asked me, why do you think she did it? They did it out of the need to put food on the table. And I can remember my mum, she, my grandfather was always, he was ex-Royal Navy, and then he had a fishing boat on the Hamble. And I always, as a kid, used to do fishing with him on holidays and stuff like that. So we do it all Easter in the winter. And we do like long netting for fish in the summer and stuff like that. And then I kind of left school and probably shouldn't have, but just kind of carried on working for him. So I became, like a privately educated fisherman. My mum was kind of looking at me thinking, no, you can't carry on like this. And then my like cadetship came up advertised, and she said, and I probably wasn't, I didn't know if I was going to do it or not, but she pretty well made me go and
so it was
apply.
Yeah.
And even though it wasn't something that I stuck with, it was very disciplined and and it was.
So she saw that you were having fun, but you needed that serious side as well.
Something which was leading me somewhere.
A bit like what you were saying, Nick, as well. Like just it's almost though like both of you are describing that they're on the outside looking in, so they can see it all, so then they can just jump in at certain moments just to make sure things don't go either too far that way or too far that way.
It's a bigger picture.
And then over the long haul, I'd get in trouble if I didn't say it, having a good wife there in the background, which is good for your mental health, hopefully. If you've got a good wife, it's good for your mental health. It's knowing that's steady there. And,
so that's part and parcel as well.
Allows you to go out and do what you need to do without.
What about you, Pete? What would you say? Was there a big?
But mother was mother. I spoke about father a fair bit, but mother was absolutely fundamental. She was a strong lady, always there, unconditional love. But not just unconditional love. She was a key member of what I would call a mum and dad father team.
Yeah.
And she was good. Again, she was a great example of what to do in life. So, which is important. And as you just said just now, Patrick, it's for me the ability to walk in that door at whatever time of night and have a wife that is there to support you no matter what. Because within business you don't know what time you're going in the morning, you don't know what time you're coming home at night, and again it has to be unconditional.
And do you think that that's very, very hard? Like, it seems easy because you're with your partner as well, aren't you? How long have you been with your partner for?
7 years.
7 years. Patrick?
Now you put me on the spot. We've been together for, my oldest daughter I'm working it all out, so 29 years. 29 years. Yeah. And then Pete?
26 years.
26 years. Are you married? You married?
I'm engaged.
Married. My partner, 25 years as well. So...
one's only for once.
But a few years, 4 years as well. But so it's interesting how we've I haven't obviously, but how you've all mentioned those strong women in your lives as well, and then speaking about partnerships and that partnership between man and woman and those dynamics there, and then the principles that you pass on as well seems to be like a common theme between all three, really, which is, I didn't expect it. Do you know what I mean? It's just something that's just happened organically, which shows as well that I think, because I think a lot of people talk about business in a very abstract way. You get someone coming, whether it be like Richard Branson or this person, that person, Elon Musk, and it's like, they're super at this and they're super at that. But I've always thought to myself, hold on a second, there must be a lot more to it. Like I actually hate it when people say, I done it, I made it on my own. Because I think, no, you didn't. No, nobody makes anything on their own. I think, and the point that I use is like, if you use a computer, someone made that computer for you. Someone wrote the software. You didn't do it. If you go to the shop and buy your food, somebody else killed that food, prepared that food. You didn't go into the forest, make a kill and put that food on the table.
You're only as good as the team that's around you. There's without doubt. But the bit we're saying about wives as well, to go home to have the comfort, you cannot build a business if you haven't got a happy home. You have to have a happy. I was in Morocco and a week or so ago, and the guys there kept saying to me, "Happy wife, happy life." And that's so true.
But is it easy to keep them happy though? That's the question.
No, I think that's where it has to be for your partner. They have to understand what you're doing, because they come second to that all of the time. There's sacrifices when you're in a business and you're working hard at it. They have to sacrifice. So you have to have a relationship that they understand what you're doing.
So you have to have good communication.
And when you walk in that door, you want to be seeing them happy, and you want them to understand. And I think from a wife partner's point of view as well, when they see you and they want to ask you all about what you've been doing, didn't they? Sometimes they know full well, actually, you don't really want to talk about it. You just want to be...
run out of words by that time.
And they get to know you. But you've got to get to know them as well. And it's a real balance that you've got to try and get right.
What do you think is harder to succeed in, relationship or business?
That's a really unfair question, because I think if you've got a loving relationship, it's personal, and personally, I'm a lucky boy.
It's a very nuanced question, though, isn't it? There's a lot of variance.
Well, the reason why I say that is because I think a lot of people will put business before a relationship, where I think if you put the relationship first to make sure that you've got the foundations right, then the business can scale and go quicker and faster, and they both require the same thing. So in business, like we were talking about before, patience. You have to wait and see processes, keep doing the same processes. And I think relationship is very similar in the fact that you have to have patience in the fact of sometimes I've been with my partner since I was 18, so I was young. So like my mind and things that I was thinking out, priorities were different then than what they are now.
Yeah.
I had to have life experiences as we grew together and understand things as well. And it's the same thing with business. Like the first businesses that I was involved in then, now I'm completely different. Like my knowledge and understanding of things is completely different. So I kind of see them the same in the fact of, if you want to succeed, you have to put a lot of hard work into it.
That's right. You have to give 100% to both.
Yeah.
You do. Your relationship, and it's very difficult.
Yeah.
You're balancing things. You're always on the go, but you have got to give 100% to both.
Yeah.
If you start taking either for granted, it's to your detriment.
Yeah.
It's no different to business. You haven't suddenly made it. You've got to keep doing it, keep looking after it.
It
keep
changes
care of
as well, doesn't it? Depending on where you are in your business career. So I certainly started in a position where I didn't have a relationship. And I probably felt that would have got in my way. So I wasn't looking for that. I was looking for business. And I was working with people who were my age, young men in their 20s, who were married with young children, and they didn't make it because they had to go home at 5 o'clock to pick the children up. And I was able to just work the hours. But if you ask me now, it's all the other way around. So now it's like you wouldn't work all those hours and not be home, or maybe it's because you can afford to. It's a different. You're in a different place, aren't you? So
that's it.
You've got to the point where you've got to get the balance.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And being the youngest out of the four of us, how do you see it? Especially like these two have got like more experience than both of us as well. In even though I've been in my relationship for quite a few years, it's from when I was 18. So it's kind of like I haven't reached to that level yet. But what do you think about what these two are saying?
I completely agree. Nothing they've said is any different to how my parents are, my grandparents are, my uncles are. All these good role models of relationships I'm surrounded by is kind of what's made mine, I suppose, as good as it is. And yeah, my fiance is brilliant. I haven't got to worry about anything at home. I haven't got to worry about the kids, and I haven't got to worry about if I've got a lot on, I don't need to worry about school drop-offs or anything like that. She happily handles everything at home, all my home admin, everything like that. I haven't got to deal with anything at home. She deals with everything, so it's a big weight off my mind. I don't need to deal with anything there, so I can fully focus on what I'm doing at work, and it's brilliant.
So some common themes definitely running through. So we've talked a lot actually about stuff that I was going to kind of save till later, and we've got really deep into some bits in there. And I think actually a lot of fundamentals, haven't we? We've covered like some real strong fundamentals that people probably listening and watching wouldn't realise they're the core to a successful business and a successful, I think as a successful person, like inner person as well. I think it's having those good relationships and stuff like that, and building on those relationships.
It's a strength of team. My grandfather's saying is always, I can't break through a pane of glass with one finger. I need all five to form a fist. Because that's the team that you need. You can't do everything on your own.
So what would be your kind of leadership styles, or maybe leadership is the wrong word? How do you work with the teams, whether it's family, whether it's working with contractors? How does that business dynamics? What's your kind of ethos with that?
I've struggled to work with my dad. So I don't.
Okay.
So we do entirely different things.
And why is
completely
that?
Separately. We just can't get on if we're working together. Just work in different ways.
Is it? Do you think it's like, let's drill into that. Is it like, do you think it's because you're too similar?
Possibly. And he's just got his own ways of doing things. And I can never tell him it's wrong because he's been successful doing it that way. But I've also done it my way and it's worked too. So I do it my way.
So it's about having that.
My dad's mostly like kind of, I suppose, semi-retired-ish now. He spends a lot of time in the gym and that kind of stuff. He still comes to the office, but generally I work on new developments, builds. I do all the rental side as well. My dad kind of deals with the odd refurbishment, that kind of stuff, and he just takes his time with it just to keep himself busy. Doesn't do it like a full-time thing anymore. He does it more of a keep himself busy, keep his guys that's worked with him for a long time busy, and and just keep those guys. And I completely work separately from him, but work very close with my mum. Mum's our accountant. She's always done our accounts, done everything in terms of the office. And in the early days when it was just family, it was always her that did everything office based. And then now we've got a bit more of a team. She runs kind of the office accounts side of things.
So who sets the culture? Like so say for instance, I'm not family and I'm working for you.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Who sets that culture of what that environment's going to be like in where we're kind of traveling? How
the whole team does.
Yeah.
It's kind of a culture that's been nurtured over time. It's not mine. It's not my dad's. It's kind of a collective culture that's been nurtured over time.
And how do you solve problems? Say, for instance, you've got a project, say like the Portsmouth project, and you've kind of like, I don't know, let's just say, for instance, a contractor that you've assigned to do the work, they've then gone into administration and whatever else, and then the new contract that's coming on board, the costs have gone up 20%, and the project's now actually not, the numbers are not adding up who's...
The first thing I'd probably do, like I said, I didn't work with my dad, but I'd always still go to him for advice. So he'd probably be my first port of call, and to sit down with him, have a chat, see where we go to move forward. Because we still, although he won't be a hands-on with the job, he'll it's still in his interest, correct? So we just, I suppose, would forge a way through ourselves.
That's interesting. It's like
what we think is the best way forward between us.
Almost a bit like if I could use an analogy of like you get into a bit of a sticky situation, and then you're like, well, I'll throw my back off.
Not so much, just more advice.
But you know that kind of thing where you're like, such and such. He's like, I know he could deal with that situation. We don't always speak all the time, but he could deal with that situation.
Or we just talk it through together. Talk it through together generally is.
So effectively, when things need to get done, they get done. Regardless. And everyone's got their camps that they work in.
It's never been a case that nothing. I don't know. There's nothing ever been a case where we haven't been able to move past anything like that.
Yeah, which is good. And Patrick, what would you say then? Would you the kind of leadership style of the business and what's driving it? Is it more? Would you say you're more like a solo entrepreneur, where it's just kind of you buying properties and stuff?
No, not at all. I mean, that was one of the things I was thinking as we were all chatting, that there's a great team behind me. I wouldn't be where I am without my team. Got a great managing director that actually transitions between our financial services business and the property businesses, and I meet with him regularly. I don't like to micro manage, so I do delegate. And the only thing you can find there, if you delegate too much, you can lose touch. So it's finding constantly finding that balance. I've got a great team that are capable of doing pretty well everything. So then that almost puts you to a position where you think, well, what do I need to do? But it wouldn't be there without you. It's just getting that.
Just feeling connected.
And if you get it really right, then you almost don't need to be there. But it wouldn't. It's odd because it wouldn't work without you. But then as you grow it, I mean, who does anyone here have a business where do you know the names of everyone that works for you? One of my things has always been like, it's not something I aspire to, but for example, I'm sure Bill Gates doesn't know the name of everyone he's taking on employing that week. At which point do you become so far removed that you don't actually even know? I'm by no means in that place, and I like the fact that I know everyone. And
I guess it's how you see business as well. If you see the business as an extension of you, then you always want to be in contact because it's like an extension of you. Or if you just see it as a vehicle to something that you put a dream into, but now you're happy for others to develop that dream, and you're kind of like to one side of it, and you know it's being managed properly. So I guess that's the different sizes, isn't it?
I don't think you can work within a business while also working on the business at the same time if you're working within the business, I don't know, 8, 10, 12 hours a day, you need a few hours to work on the business, to grow the business, because otherwise you're just in the hamster wheel turning every day and nothing really is changing. You're just doing the same thing every day. Nothing changes. You have to take some time outside of working within the business to work on the business, to think of next moves, to think of, to gather up and just to work out what's the next stage, what's the next step.
Would you agree with that, Pete?
I think you set the culture within a company. Yeah. And I've been fortunate to have always had great staffing in all of the businesses I've been involved in.
Is it fortunate though? Is it fortunate? So is there no process?
You make your own fortune. Yeah. You do make your own fortune. But you have to make sure that those people come with you. And they have to have the excitement of anything you're doing and to be part of that. Yeah. And there's absolutely no doubt in my mind at all. For me, I'm nothing incredible about. I'm not a super intelligent person. Just make the right decisions. But I've got a good team of people that follow those through for me.
But are you being modest?
They follow them through because of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're being modest though.
Well, I don't think. I think I'm being honest.
No, but when a lot of people say that, not like they say not super intelligent, but then what is super intelligence? Like maybe you couldn't go into a room full of physicists and start talking quantum mechanics. Yeah. But you've obviously got people intelligence. And like what you said earlier, when you realised that the value of like what the plumbing supply should be, etc., that
yeah, I think there's a lot to this. You've got to be able to talk to people in the right way. Yeah. And that's not in a false way because you're told to speak this way. It's to have feeling and empathy with people and understanding of people and try and understand what they're best at within any organisation. It's a bit like a football team. You play to the weakest player in any football team.
Is that a rare talent, or is that a skill, or is that, what would you say that is?
I think it becomes something that's I think it's something that's natural to you because a lot of people don't want to show leadership. A lot of people worry about being in that sort of position. But I think what I come back to with all of the youngsters, because there's so many youngsters, I don't like to think I'm old now, but clearly I'm old, and they always say, what do you do? Yeah, just a little bit. But if they look at you and think, well, how do you do it? Because so many people want to make money and get on this journey. It's an easy thing to do. You just have to be disciplined, make the right decisions, and stand by principles. And I think if you're in it for the long run, you keep working at it, and you've got some common sense and treat people in the right way. You're going to have some fights on the way. That's unfortunately part of life. But you've got to try and walk by those and deal with it. Common sense is what's the definition?
What's your definition?
That's a tricky question. That is a tricky question.
Simple things in life and taking the right approach to them. It comes back to what I was saying to you earlier. I am not somebody, in my opinion, that's an ultra intelligent person, but people intelligent and sometimes I can be accused of trusting people too much. People say to me, within or without the business, what do you see in that? But why do you trust them? Why are you investing in that? And look at me as if,
gut feeling.
Why would you do that? And but if you see something within somebody, then that person can be a great person.
Is that a gut feeling you have for people?
Yeah, gut feeling. Yeah, it is gut feeling. Yeah, but your gut feeling's made by your eyes and your head and your ears, isn't it?
Yeah,
so
all the senses,
you listen and watch. And
Do you also think as well, when you, and this is I'm going to open this out to all three of you as well. Do you also think that there's, like, we've kind of touched on the emotional intelligence. I think that's what you were describing there, and being able to understand people. Because I think at the end of the day, success is with other people, teamwork. If you can motivate someone, if you can motivate a stranger and they feel passionate about what you want to achieve the same way you want to achieve it, then effectively the world's your oyster, isn't it? Because you get as many of those, it's like a film. People go and watch a film with an actor in that they don't even know, but they believe in that actor or actress. And that's why they go and pay their money to see them, even though it's a stranger that they've never met that lives on the other side of the world. But like, what would you say is, what would you say is an area where you've maybe failed, or there's been a real harsh moment where you thought, do you know what? If we didn't get through that, moment there, like I thought maybe the business was going to go complete, or maybe it was a decision, maybe not the business, but maybe you felt the weight of the business on your shoulders. Can you describe any of those moments?
Yeah. For me, it was my last big project I did. It was a big student development, 156 room student property. Started it January 2020. COVID hit. I'd already borrowed most of the money to do it.
Yeah.
Against quite a lot of the assets. So, quite a sizable risk.
Yeah.
COVID happened, so I couldn't build it out at the speed I needed to, because we weren't allowed as many people on site as probably needed. Was paying the interest all the time. It was supposed to finish 2022, ended up finishing 2024. So it took an extra 2 years of paying interest whilst getting no income, which was right on the edge. Definitely felt the weight of, like I said earlier, 77 years of my family's hard work on my shoulders. Because if I couldn't carry on making those interest payments, or couldn't, if something went wrong, worse than it had already gone wrong, because everything went wrong. I was supposed to have an electric substation on site, and SSE delayed that for 19 months in total. We pulled off site for 15 months, and every month we're paying interest out of our own pocket rather than...
Big worry at the time, because you're concerned the interest rates are going to go the other way.
The interest rates were going up, and the interest rates were going up. So at the time we took the date on, it's all variable. Interest rates our actual interest rate tripled. We went from paying 2-point-something% to paying 7%.
Yeah, it's a lot, isn't it?
Which was a huge amount when you factored in for 2-point-something%. And my entire career, interest rates have been 1% or under. My entire career.
Don't look at me like that.
So obviously
I can remember a bit more than that, can't we?
I'd always been warned by my granddad of 17-18% interest rates of the 80s, 90s. But it just hadn't happened in my lifetime, and I was just so used to it. It was kind of almost blasé. And I'd taken on all this risk. And at that point, it wasn't paying off. There was a lot of sleepless nights. There was a lot of stress and worry that, I could actually destroy 70 odd years worth of hard work and sacrifice of my whole family.
There is a big difference though, because banks have not been irresponsibly lending now so when you're taking that on, then you would still have had the comfort margin of not having irresponsible lending.
Yes, but that irresponsible comfort margin was when interest rates were 0.1% base. And they went up to 5-point-something in that time.
A big swing.
A big old swing that was. So that margin at the time was 0.85 ratio. So we went way past that. Way past that. We're taking on all the debt, and we're expecting the income to come in.
Yeah, of course, right, so of course we're all doing sort of brownfield stuff, really. But you imagine if you're a greenfield developer sitting there at the moment trying to, none of us are really into it. I mean, I do some, a reasonable amount of it, but it's I mean, that's at the moment is a nightmare, isn't it? Because you're sitting in trying to get planning for goodness knows how many. There's so much money tied up into it, and then you can't even build it at the moment because it becomes non-viable to build
what happened to me was in this site, why I was most stressed is because it was all completely finished. I'd spent all the money, it was all done, waiting for electric connection that should have been done 2 years prior. So I was completely complete. All the money was spent.
Oh, right.
But I had no income when I should have had income because I had no electric. So everything was done bar electric. Yeah. So it was...
And there's not really... You can't really do anything with the electric. You can't... It's
I
not
chased
like you
them
can...
5 times a day, every day, different people, solicitors and all sorts of people. But they hold a monopoly SSE in this area, and you can't do nothing.
There's nothing. Yeah.
You're literally at their mercy, and they hold.
There's real issues with that at the moment too.
Yeah.
It's not just
I'm going for a similar issue now, but I've kind of learnt my lesson of not spending all the money at the beginning. So I'm going for a high-rise building at the moment. It's a conversion from offices to flats, and since Grenfell, obviously anything high-rise, they call it high-risk high-rise, and doesn't go through the normal building control procedures. They tried to make planning easier with permit development on these commercials to resi. And then what they've done now is because of Grenfell, they created this gateway process. I don't know if you've done any of it. And the gateway 2 is...
It's a slow gate.
It's
a quick gate, but it's a slow gate.
Very, 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 very painful, very frustrating, very time consuming, very capital intensive for really just tick boxing exercise.
That's an interesting point for the youngsters when they keep asking as well too. Is that in terms of any project you get hold of, from our point of view, we need it to sweat as quickly as possible. So you want to be having something so that you can start throwing cash off from it as quickly as possible.
It's key. In this country, I think it's weird because you go abroad to certain countries, whether it be in Europe, Spain or whatever, or further afield, and then what I tend to find is your normal things are really, really slow. So things that we take for granted, like, you can go online and get your digital thing from your council and it's quite quick. But then the things like, say, building, whether it's like, extensions or just going a little bit deeper, like 4-story building, etc., they take ages. Whereas then you go to other parts of the world, it's the opposite. So the little things with the council take ages, but you want to go and build something, you can do it quicker. Do you know what I mean? So, and you think to yourself...
It's still that way in the UK though, because as you said earlier, I travel around the UK quite a lot doing different projects. And it will amaze you that you go to different local authorities in places where they want to see inward investment, where you can get planning... There's very similar stuff that you're looking to try and get in the New Forest or Winchester or whatever. Then all of a sudden you can
suddenly efficient.
They're quick. They're on it. They're keen for you to invest. Things happen. And there's not blocks keeping on being put in the way. As you said, the efficiency in those areas changes
depending on the need with the actual local authority itself.
I suppose the individuals that are running it makes that difference.
Yeah, it comes down to the people because they're putting the blocks in the way, which is hard.
Whether they're open or closed for businesses.
So Patrick, what about yourself? Has there ever been a moment then, whether like even professional career or with what you're doing now with the property, etc., where it's just there's been some, weight on your shoulders kind of stuff?
I don't think any of it will top Nick's story. I was hanging on to the edge of my seat there. There has been, but not to that kind of scale. So always with like with an HMO property, for example, there's a period where unless you're buying one which is already refurbished, if you're taking one which is, say, a 3 or 4 bedroom house and you're going to turn it into a 7 bedroom, everything with en suites, you have a big period of investment, and then if it's going to go to students, there'll be a period whereby you might have missed the actual term start, year start, or something like that. I'm only ever doing one at a time, so I anticipate that anyway, and know that's going to happen in some cases. Then you can always get a different, more professional kind of tenant in the interim. But I did have a period. I did have an incident 5 years ago where I transitioned my financial services business from being with a long-term business partner. There was a family member, and taking that away and going off on my own. And there was a period there where, it's never a foregone conclusion that you're going to become regulated in a new organisation. You don't just automatically get that. You have to apply, and there's a long process. And that was kind of end of COVID time. And the rules seem to have changed whilst that year of application.
So
it became more long-winded, and there was literally a sort of a 6-week period where I thought that I might not get my authorities. And then you start to think about the clients and how they're going to be looked after, because you can't look after them unless you're
licensed.
Literally did have sleepless nights over that, and things sort of came crashing in mentally a little bit. But we did. We got through it, and it was successful, and moved on.
Different. Like you said, the thing is, it might be like what Nick was talking about is a different scale, and the fact of like generations of kind of building was going into it. But as an individual, it just feels the same, doesn't it? Like, you get to a point where you think to yourself, the weight on your shoulders is just the weight on your shoulders. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't matter what anyone else says, it's how you feel. Like, I always find that when you write something down, it doesn't feel as bad as when it's in your head. When it's in your head, if you're thinking to yourself, I'm waiting for this, or I'm waiting for the electricity company and stuff like that, and blah, 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 in your head, it seems to weigh more than if you write it down on a piece of paper, when you're like, right, this is what I need to happen now. And then that's it. It seemed that instantly, for me anyway, seems to take a lot of the weight out of the problem and stuff, which is interesting. But I totally understand. Like both of you, where
I wrote it down loads of times.
It still felt the same, didn't it?
I don't know if it was because I was communicating with the banks, obviously, because I like when you Peter was just saying, you have these provisions in these loan agreements and stuff, but when you start hitting the
covenant test,
and stuff, and there's a lot of conversations that you don't want to have with people that have the power to take it all away.
And I think banks, from my experience from property,
they don't want you to fail.
No, they've become a lot more relaxed than what they used to be. They used to be a bit more sharky, didn't they?
It's because of saying the lending requirements and what they do. It's far less risk involved in it. They have to set aside for it, and they've got their own compliance to meet with. I mean, funds managed works within it. So I think for me, I think a lot of banks out there at the moment are a pleasure to work with.
I think the landscape's changed in that respect, though, hasn't it?
Yes, I think since after the sort of 2008, 2009, it's changed. I mean, I do a lot of banking with Barclays, and what a super bunch of people to work with. Couldn't speak higher of them.
Okay. And what about you, Pete? Has there been the moment in your kind of professional business career where you thought, could go a bit tits up here, or feeling a lot of pressure with this?
No, I can't. It depends where you measure it. Would I ever think have I ever been at the point of thinking something's terminal? No. No, I haven't. Do I consistently have issues, problems, goodness knows what to deal with? That's part of life, and that's also part of being at the top of your tree within what you're doing with your company, because the buck has to stop somewhere, and hopefully it can all get sorted out. But until that, if it's not, you've still got to sort it. So fortunately as well, you go home at night and it's on your mind, and it's where you need your wife to be the person that understands, because you have to, in your own head, you have to deal with that, work it through, and quiet time in the middle of the night, you regularly, you're led there and trying to sleep, and you're wake up with it, and you have to deal with that. But you deal with that.
Sometimes in good ways as well. I wake up excited a lot. In the middle of the night, excited about getting onto this project or getting onto whatever I might be doing. It's not always negative.
It's something. It's daunting issues in the middle of the night, but it's also a time when nothing else is going through your mind. So you've got a chance to think it through. Not the best time to be doing it, but that's what happens.
So what do you enjoy the most then, and has that enjoyment changed over the years? So tell me. Just I don't want to influence you. What do you enjoy the most?
The buzz of deals, and the excitement of the excitement of what's coming along next.
And what does that mean? The buzz of deals, like
so buying something that you know you've bought full well at the right price. So that you know as soon as you're on it, it's viable, and what you're going to turn it into and what you're going to deliver.
Okay.
And that's not always just financially, because if you're holding on to it long term, you want to actually, if you can be proud enough to look and think, we've got that, and keeping hold of that, and we're going to keep that for foreseeable future. And it's a great buzz. When you can look at it and know you've delivered something.
But if you've been after it for a long time,
you can't kid yourself. It's got to be commercially viable.
Or if you've been after it for a long time and it's finally, like you've been knocking that door for a long time and finally it opens.
It's a buzz, isn't it?
It's brilliant.
I remember it took me 2 years to get my billboard on the Territorial Army site. It took me 2 years. 2 years. And the funny thing about it, because I was driving around Southampton looking at potential sites, and I had a site up by 4-0. Do you know, it used to have the, the storage place used to have an advert on there. So if you come from Bursledon in on the left-hand side, that place there, right, that was my first site that I thought, that'll work. I went in, and it was a husband and wife that owned like the shop there. It was like a mirror business or something, glass.
Atkinson's.
Yes, and went and met them, and they were like, "Yep, sounds really good." The husband was like, "Yeah, really, really good." I was like, "Okay, I'll get the paperwork. I'll do the planning and stuff. Not a problem." So I went and done the planning, paperwork. Come back a few months later, and I was like, "Right, I've got the thing to sign now because we've got the planning permission." So I phoned him up. He goes, "Dwayne, I'm really, really sorry." And I was like, "No, what? Like what?
Sold it.
No. Me and the wife have broken up.
Oh, no.
We've broken up, and she now owns it. So you're gonna have to go and chat to her." And I was like, like going back to the thing with COVID, and I just thought to myself, how effing unlucky am I? Do you know what I mean? Like that was the first one I've been searching for places. Anyway, I went and saw her, and she'd shacked up with some new guy, obviously head over heels, wasn't thinking about anything to do with billboards and all the rest of it. It just said to me, "No, I don't want to do that now." And I was like, "Oh my God." So I was, so then after that, I looked at, down the bottom of Bitton. So where Bitton train station is. So where the car sales place is there. And I got in touch with the guys there, but I failed on planning with that. So after that, I was like, right, I can't do them one by one. I'm going to have to get 3 or 4 sites simultaneous that I apply for planning, but then only develop one at a time. Because otherwise I'm like waiting 6 to 9 months turnaround with all these things. It's just not feasible. Like you said, it's got to be commercially viable. It's not doing it that way. So I learned that lesson real quick. And then so as that second one was doing, I was in touch with the army, and the MOD is so difficult because obviously to us, it's just a simple site. But for them, it's kind of like you've got to go through the Ministry of Defence. Some top brass has got to authorise it. Their positions are always changing, so you don't know who needs to ask for permission for what. 2 years. 2 years that took, but persistence. And it's probably the best site that I've got as well.
Yeah, a nice one to drive by every day, and they pulled it off.
Yeah. So I totally understand that, because I was like, oh my God, am I going to get an answer today? Am I going to get an answer? Still waiting. So yeah, that was difficult.
I guess that's the same with everybody in all walks of life, isn't it? Because you get disappointment, you get ups and you get downs. That is part of business.
Yeah.
Anybody that tells you any different, and they're either lying or they're not in business.
Yeah. And I love it, to be fair. I think the biggest problem that I've got, I don't know if any of you guys can relate, and that is I have so many ideas, it's just focusing on one. Because for me, I'm a problem solver. I'll be driving down the road and I think to myself, why have they done the road layout like this? It's stupid. That's why we got traffic. Like, they could fix it. And I'd be on the phone to whoever it is at the council, wherever, highways, wherever I am. Like, look, you could do this and that could fix. And that's part of my problem. So people will come to me, they'd be like, Dwayne, I've got this issue, I've got that issue, blah, 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 business, da-da-da. And I'd be like, yeah, do this, do that. I had someone the other day come to me just to put an advert on. And I ended up giving them a marketing strategy. And it's like, really, I should be charging for that. But for me, it's just a case of, we were talking, like we're talking now, part of the conversation, I could hear that he's got that problem, and I was just instinctively like, just do this. And that's it kind of thing. So I think for me, my biggest downfall is just sticking to one thing at a time and seeing it through to the end. Is something that I've had to learn to kind of home in on and stay focused.
Yeah, you've got to be careful with your time.
Yeah.
So you can waste a lot of time. But you also get to stages where you've got to give back a lot of time. Because over the years, we've all been helped by the older people.
That's it,
Sometimes you've got to give back bits and pieces. You'll find that. You will just give back a little bit of time.
Yeah, give back something. So I guess then we'll kind of wrap it up now.
I suppose that's what you're doing now.
Well, giving back time. Yes, well, this sort of thing. Yeah, I guess.
Giving knowledge.
Let's hope so,
Yeah. Hopefully there's...
he's a nice guy, and when he said, would you do it? Of course we will.
Yeah.
Which I
you want you
appreciate.
guys to
For the audience. I mean, you're giving your time up for
And that's what it's about as well, is that knowledge, because I think from kind of, I guess, from Pete going all the way up till now, and the generations that have kind of gone in between, the gatekeeping of knowledge has stopped now, hasn't it? So it used to be before, you'd have to go to a library to get knowledge. It'd be limited. You'd have to pay a whole heap of money to get things that were quite simple. If you think even solicitors and lawyers, simple stuff in reality, but because of the jargon and all the rest of it, whereas now you can go online, you can get it, like, the knowledge is freely available for people that want access to it, which is how it should always be. It should have always been like that, but it wasn't, because people assumed that there is only limited of everything, where in actual fact, there's unlimited abundance. There's enough for everybody. You know what I mean? To
incredibly available now.
Yeah, 100%. So rather than go for, if you had £1,000, what would you do with it if you start from fresh? Let's go instead. If you were starting a business from scratch, what business would you choose to do that you don't already do? So I want you to come out of your comfort zone. Yeah, that's it. I told you that there could be some curveballs.
And is this us now at our ages, or are we taking this back in time?
No back in time.
And then we've got nothing.
You've got nothing. You've got nothing but your socks, your trainers, your shorts, your top.
And £1,000.
And no £1,000. So this is just a business that you'd go into, but it can't be anything that you've got pre-existing experience in. So it's literally just brand new, out of your comfort zone, what you would start from scratch and what you would do. So I'm interested. And I think we'd do it. Pete, since you've got the most experience, I'm going to start with you first.
I would hate to be first.
I have been involved in far too many things now, and investing in, and having a, so I can't. They don't qualify because I'm already doing that.
There must be something
where I would go back to, and to give you a straightforward answer, you have to think quick, and we're talking of a small amount of money. And I'm digressing a little bit. I've said regularly to my wife how much I would love to just go away with, say, 20, 30, 40 grand out to another country where nobody knows you and see what you could make and buzz off there for about 10 years, then come back and see what you've done. So digressing, but it would be good fun. So for me, it comes back to the simplicity of, as I say, I'm not ultra intelligent, but know how to work and know how to buy, know how to sell and how to trade. And it would be simplistically, I think, buying and selling, buy stock from receivership and flog it on. Like somebody like Chris Dawson has done with the range. Bought a whole stack of goods from MFI at the time and and moved
that how
on.
we started?
So
Okay.
so you ended down in Plymouth. So I think
Del
that's
Boy.
it's.
His nickname's Del Boy.
Yes, so I think I know how I can buy, and I know how I can sell, and it's how I would get from there to there. Simplistically, if I was a techie, or I'd probably invest my money in a great techie mate that I could find and say, right, let's go for it. But I'm not a techie.
Yeah. Okay, that's is that an acceptable answer? I think it is. So basically,
Buying and selling.
Yeah. Del Boy.
Yeah.
Del Boy. Okay. Yeah, I like it. Patrick.
I'm going to be awkward for you here, Dwayne. So
I'll be awkward back though.
Okay, so is there no money?
There's no money.
There's got to be some money, else I can't do anything.
No, because it's just showing your skills. So there's things that you can do.
He had 30 or 40 grand.
No. He said about going to an island.
If I did. So I think we were allowed to start with, was it
originally £1,000? Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to buy and sell much of that, am I?
Yeah. Let's give you a grand then.
Okay, you're going to give me a grand. I'm going to keep, this is proper Del Boy. You're going to keep it really simple. Something I never did well. The only thing when I can think back, I think one of the things, look after the pennies and the pounds will look after themselves. It's got to be one of the greatest adages of the Noel. And I found that in more recent times, I waste so much money that I would never have wasted. Doubly buying things, not taking something back to a shop. When you get back home, you realise that you've already bought it. Something from B&Q. I've already got one of those things to put on. I would never have done that. Yeah. And the thing that I never ever did for years was never lose money on a car. So I would always do the work on it. If there's a bit of rust, I would do this, I would do that. So if I had £1,000, I would try and do something like that. Or I'd buy proper Del Boy, something I haven't done as a business, and I can't think beyond that. With such a small amount of money. And again, perhaps if you had 18-year-olds here, they'd probably want to be producing an app. But apparently everyone wants to produce an app. And but just on that same subject, similar subject, because there was something I wanted to say all the way through.
Yeah, go for it.
Which was just the one of my Nick had some sort of quite good old adages about the one finger, I need 5 fingers, and all this kind of thing, which I really liked. But my one, which I'd have to say that I got out of Christmas cracker about 20 years ago, was that the lift to success is often broken. So it's best to take the stairs. That's one of my things. But I wonder sometimes if that holds me back. Because if it looks too good, I'm like, do you know what? I'm just going to carry on up these stairs. And I think sometimes, I don't know, what do you guys think? Do you think you keep...
No, I disagree. The slow journey up those stairs is the one
that will definitely get you there. But are you sometimes just not looking to the left or right enough?
I would say so. I would say that... I would say in this, I guess the main difference between us four is I'm more techie. So I see those opportunities, blockchain.
You're going to drop into the lift as soon as you get a chance,
stuff like and I think, and also as well, I think that for me, it's all about value. So if you can add value to somebody, then they will pay for that value. As simple as that. So
I had a change of direction after. Sorry, Nick. But I was thinking, actually, you gave me a few more minutes while we're just talking. And actually, I'll take that money back. And what I would actually do is I would offer myself, because we said at this age now, I'll say, right, I'll sit on your board if you wish. Your board you wish. I'll want a small amount of equity. And I'll sit on your board, because there's so many opportunities to sit on people's boards and give your grey hair and experience to those people. That's right, so long as you can add value. If not, you're wasting their time and your time. And that would
and you're leveraging yourself, really, because,
absolutely right.
Absolutely you put yourself in those positions, 2 or 3 of them go boom. It's quitting, isn't it? It's a no-brainer.
Before you said tech as well a little bit. Something within tech that's rapidly scalable, something like your emails that you do, the email ads that you do. I think that's where I would sort of focus if I was into a whole different business or industry. It would be something tech scalable, because it's globally scalable.
And not only that, but if you just have a look at the data,
probably the best way into that would be, like you say, but
just sitting on the board or something.
Something that's already there.
You look at the top. I think it's the top 7 companies in the US. are all tech companies, like the biggest companies in the, the S&P, I think it's the S&P 500. Yeah. And I think that their market share is something phenomenal, like 60, 70%. You know, and we're talking the largest economy in the world. Do you know what I mean? And all of it is just off of tech. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, from your Apple, they've obviously built an ecosystem. Microsoft, remember Windows 3.1 back in the days? So
yeah.
Not Windows 95. Windows 95 is my first one.
And then when you look at, say, for instance, the newer ones, we talked about COVID, Netflix, Airbnb. Do you know what I mean? These are ones that have come out from like, especially Airbnb from like COVID times and stuff like that. And they're now like their market cap's in the billions. And effectively, Airbnb, what's I can't remember what their slogan is. It's something like I think they're the biggest property agents that don't own any property. Do you know what I mean?
I think that's Uber's line as well, isn't it?
Yeah, with the taxis.
The biggest taxi company that don't own any taxis.
Yeah. And it's literally because you just the digital middleman. That's all they are. You know, before you had the financial kind of middleman, which this country's famous for, isn't it? Financial services, and it's just been that digital middle.
They've created great brands as well. It's been absolutely tremendous.
Yeah. So, right then, I think our time is up. It's been an absolute pleasure. There's been some big gems that you guys have dropped, seriously. And thank you very much for coming on. And guys, I didn't mention it before, but subscribe, comment as well, and like and share the video. And thank you for watching.